Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Our purpose and passion are simple: to highlight the incredible nonprofits that make our communities stronger. Each episode is a chance for these organizations to tell their story in their words, sharing not just what they do, but why it matters to the people they serve, to their supporters, and to all of us who believe in the power of community. Through podcasting, we hope to amplify their voices, inspire connection, and give them one more tool to impact the hearts of donors, partners, and neighbors alike. This work is made possible through the generous support of our incredible partners: Cap Trust, offering fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations; Western Health Advantage, a local not-for-profit health plan that believes healthcare is more than coverage. It's about caring; CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. They work in it so you can work on it. And Five Star Bank, a local, trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. What happens when a community realizes that reading isn't just an educational benchmark, but the foundation for opportunity, confidence, participation, and even democracy itself? This episode, I sit down with Sacramento Literacy Foundation Executive Director April Javist for a passionate and eye-opening conversation about literacy, accountability, and why grade-level reading by third grade may be one of the most important issues facing our society today. April doesn't just talk about literacy as an academic challenge. She frames it as a life outcome issue that impacts everything from graduation rates and employment to mental health, incarceration, civic engagement, and generational poverty. The conversation explores the startling reality that more children today are not reading at grade level than are, and why that matters in an information-driven world where reading touches every aspect of life. We also dive into the Sacramento Literacy Foundation's innovative work providing culturally relevant books to children and families, why representation in books matters so deeply for young readers, and how simple access to the right books can create lasting emotional impact and connection. April shares moving stories from the field, discusses the growing movement around the science of reading, and explains how accountability, early intervention, teacher training, and community involvement can dramatically improve literacy outcomes. This is more than a conversation about schools. It's a conversation about community responsibility, human potential, and the belief that every child deserves the ability to fully participate in society. And as you'll hear for April, literacy isn't just a mission, it's a revolution. April Javist, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network.
Thank you.
You mentioned that more children struggle with reading than can read proficiently. And just hearing that is astounding to me. But what's the significance of that in the grand scheme of things?
So I would just reframe that a little bit, and I would say more kids cannot read at grade level than can.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I would say about it.
And we're going to touch on that grade level?
We are going to touch on the grade level because it's important. So in an information age, people need to be able to read. So if you're a struggling reader as a kid, then you're going to be a struggling reader as a young adult. If you're a struggling reader as a young adult, you're having a hard time finding a job, you're probably not going into the voting booth, which has a very complex set of language relative to the ballot, and you're not able to fully participate in society. Right, so in an information age, this is troubling. Back in the day, the good old days, where people want to think that we all learned to read, which we did not. Just readers learned to read. 1 in 3 brains will read no matter what. But back then, we had jobs for folks who struggled to read in manufacturing base. You could actually build a career and have a struggling reading inside, but still rise into a managerial position, union position, those kind of things. But we don't have that now. So now you have to be able to read. I don't care what your job is. You have to be able to read. And if you're not, you're just not participating in what's going on in our country day to day.
And I would imagine you're going to miss an awful lot, too. No matter how screen set you may be, you still need to read, even though you can find much on a YouTube or an AI product or something like that. You're still going to have to read at some point to understand what it's sharing with you.
You are. You absolutely are.
This tees the organization up, I think, really, really well. Can you give us a little history of how Sacramento Literacy Foundation came to be?
So in 2020, we became the Sacramento Literacy Foundation.
That's
and
a
we
good year,
created
right?
3
Coming right out
goals.
of the pandemic.
Yeah, coming right out of the pandemic. Well, the pandemic showed everybody that kids couldn't read. It didn't make it harder for kids to read, with the exception of absenteeism. But it did show everybody that kids couldn't read. Parents suddenly had to test their kids, and they're like, what? I thought my kid could read. So a lot of information came out. So the pandemic was a little bit silver lining-ish, because it helped us see, oh, kids can't read, and it put a spotlight on a problem that's been existing for actually a couple decades, just to say.
And even for
Actually,
those parents, the parents are now seeing their children at home, realizing,
right,
my goodness, okay.
right. And parents expect schools to teach their kids to read. They expect that. But in California, you don't get tested until the end of the 3rd grade. So if your child's struggling to read, there's a way you wouldn't find out until literally the summer between 3rd and 4th grade.
1, 2, 3 years, no testing?
No testing. That's changed now. In the last couple of years, that's changed. We now have an early screener which is mandated by legislation. I think it's SB 114. And early screeners have to happen in every school, kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, every year. So that's good. The next step is going to be, what are you going to do about the kids who are struggling? That's the next question. But question 1 is getting some information about kids' struggle. So that's a good question that you asked.
And that's what got you started,
right,
in 2020. And
so 3 goals.
Here we are 6 years later.
Right. Culturally relevant, diverse books in kids' hands and homes. So pre-pandemic, everybody talked about how kids don't have books in the home. And so I thought, well, what can we do to put books in the homes that don't have books in the homes? And then I met Janae Brown Wood, who is an author here in Sacramento, and she was teaching at Sac State at the time. And she did all this research in mirrors and windows, and we'll talk about that a little later, I think, about what it means to have culturally relevant books in front of you as a kid of color, and seeing yourself and how important that is. It's called Windows and Mirrors. So we decided that we would really deepen our work and do that. We started out with a book giveaway that was like, we bought 30,000 books for $5,000, screaming deal, 18 cents a book. But they were a lot of Disney books, princess books, and the kids, they were okay, but no relationships came out of it. No relationships at all. And so I had to think, okay, what can we do to deepen this, right? And so what we did to deepen it was align the bag of books to the kids at a school site, to be very intentional, go after the school sites that had the highest Title I ratings, so that we were getting to the poorest kids. And we built a program like that. And that's been very successful. That has built lots of relationships for us across all of Sacramento.
Let's go ahead and get into that culturally relevant books, because I'm not sure everybody understands what you mean by that. And
well, what book did you read as a boy that you liked? Tell me a book.
Oh boy, I mean a
Just
Tom
pick one.
Sawyer type book. Okay, you're a
there
kid.
you are, Tom Sawyer. So
Right.
he looks like you.
Yep.
Right. So you probably liked that book, right? So because he
I
looked
lived
like
on a creek, and I always had this thing that I was going to get a raft, and I was kind of,
There you
because the
go.
creek intersected with the Mississippi River some south. If you kept going south from Chicago, you could take Salt Creek and end up there.
So now I'll turn that and I'll say, that's why seeing yourself in a book matters.
Yep.
You're talking about the story, you're
Engagement.
remembering things about it. You probably found yourself liking it because you like seeing yourself.
Yeah.
Kids like seeing themselves, right? And if they don't see themselves, they're like, oh, this isn't for me. So a kid seeing themselves in a book is what's so important as the protagonist. So that's why we even further gender the bag, so that every little girl and every little boy sees themselves. And that's the important part is the little boy, because there's not as many boy books written as girl books.
Oh,
There's
interesting.
probably 4 girl books written to every boy book, And so we got to get those boys interested in seeing themselves.
Taking it beyond the cultural part of it, you mentioned grade level reading.
Right.
And there's a significance to that in its gauging for the student. What is it? Because there's some things, if you don't read by, you will
Right. I know where
likely-
you're headed here. So grade level reading is like a state measure, right? So, but the way school works is that you learn to read TK through 3rd grade. Okay, so those are the years you're learning to read. In the fourth grade, you're reading to learn. So it's turned on you. If you are not reading at grade level, that means that you're reading to learn, not at grade level. That means you're not just falling behind in this one skill, but you're falling behind in every single topic now because you don't have the skill. It's like if a baker, I don't know, didn't have a spoon, right?
Right.
Like, they had a stove and they, but didn't have a spoon or a way to stir the ingredients, right?
You're going to work a lot harder to figure out how this is supposed to happen.
Right.
And then maybe fail because it's so difficult.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. I can't figure it out.
We're not teaching it the right way. So one of our goals is evidence-based curriculum to promote and to advocate for curriculum, teacher training, and eventually after-school programming that aligns with the science of reading. We just got a bill passed in Sacramento. In California. In Sacramento, we built a coalition here, but California, Ed Voice did such a great job, a unanimous vote in the Senate and the House to pass a discretionary science of reading bill. Mississippi passed a non-discretionary science of reading bill, and inside of 3 years, they went from 22% to 85% third grade reading rate. Think about that, right? Ours is discretionary, so the job is not done. We have the legislation.
Whose discretion?
It depends on, in a school district, who's choosing curriculum, who's making the decisions. So we have some districts that are district-wide that, do things as a district. We have some districts where things happen at a school site level, and we have some systems where teachers make decisions, and teachers can have, there are some of our districts where a teacher could have in one second grade class, one curriculum, and another second grade class, another curriculum. That's not helpful to kids who are transitioning and all these kind of things. So, and there's a lot of pushback on we can't have everything, it can't be one size fits all. But actually reading is a one size fits all. It's a skill. It's just a skill. It's a muscle building. It's like, if I went to the gym and I said, well, I'm going to build my biceps in a different way. I'm going to do some leg lifts. Well, it won't work.
It's a great analogy.
It just won't work. So what we need to do is we need to give people the right barbells. We need to give kids the right instruction. It needs to be explicit. It needs to be direct. And it needs to be based on phonemes, oral language, phonics, fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. All of those things all of the time.
And I would imagine in order to do that properly, there has to be some regular assessment that says you are either progressing or not.
Right. And you need teachers who are trained in that. And you need colleges to train the teachers to do that. There's a whole system there that has to get rocked.
Well, in a little bit of the prep work that I was doing, I noticed, not that I was doing a little bit of prep work, but in the prep work, as a result of our conversation prior, just looking at the way that the systems are set up in various states, the greater the accountability, shockingly, the greater the performance from the students.
Well, that can't be too surprising.
Right?
So
no,
Mississippi...
I say that a bit facetiously.
Okay. Because, in Mississippi, one of their accountability measures, which I know this is hard to hear, is that if you don't get to if you don't pass that third grade test, you don't go to the fourth grade.
Right.
So that's holding everybody accountable, the teacher, the kid, the parent. But what they also do in Mississippi is they put an awful lot around that third grader. They give them a lot of extra resources. They work hard to create success because accountability, right? They don't want to be like, yeah, we did this thing and then everybody flunked.
Right.
That's
both ways. For the student's benefit of, I didn't pass, but now I can read better, or vice versa. I got pushed forward, but I can't read.
Right.
And now I'm not going to make it to 8th grade or high school.
We push a lot of kids forward here.
I know.
It's stunning. And so I think the Mississippi crew, they all got hired in Maryland.
I saw that.
And I don't know if you saw that Maryland just passed the same law, state policy.
Oh, I did not see that.
Said
no.
If you don't pass that third grade test, you don't go to the fourth grade. It was about, 6 months ago. And I thought, there they are. They have a rinse and repeat approach.
Mississippi 2.0, I saw.
Yep, and they're doing it.
Well, and it's important. The article that we're speaking to it's New York Times. You can look it up. Just go to New York Times and find Mississippi story or something. It'll show up.
Yeah, I want to say one thing. They call it a Mississippi miracle, But a couple of us in the world of this, in this literacy world, just want to make note that Mississippi calls it the Mississippi Marathon.
Okay, good, good.
So
no miracle.
Yeah, it's not a miracle.
Just,
they've worked very hard.
Yeah, over time. I saw in 2013 is when they started this process.
Right. They got the bill. And actually, it was 2011 with a run for literacy. And then that money went to creating a policy in 2013, which got implemented in 2016. And
keeping in mind, this is one of the states that has the lowest dollar of numbers of dollar investment per student in the country.
Diverse. It debunks the whole idea that diversity and poverty have a direct impact on a child's ability to learn to read.
Right.
It doesn't. What has an impact on a child's ability to learn to read is the instruction around them.
The way they're taught.
And that we all need to know something about this. Like, just like we all know something about recycling, we all need to know something about how we teach reading and how we learn reading. We just all need to know.
So Sacramento Literacy Foundation, are you working at the teacher level, the school level, the student level? Who is the direct beneficiary, or who do you directly impact?
I think almost all of the above.
Okay.
Because of the three things that we do. The third thing that we do is we give money to community programs that are doing summer reading, because summer reading loss is a big deal, right? So I think kids benefit directly from the books in their hands. We also have an initiative in WellSpace now where we're giving every 0 to 5-year-old a book who comes to their wellness visit.
Wonderful.
And so those are also, it's a very low income crowd. So who benefits there? The parents, the kids, the doctors, all the people benefit, right? Because it's a relationship builder. What I can say is these books have built more relationships than I ever anticipated. And I mean positive, solid, go to, oh, you can be trusted, oh, we can do this together, oh, we can be very explicit, we can be very intentional, we can be anti-racist in a very positive way, and we can get the right things done. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something about it that everybody just likes it. And so it's really building good relationships. And I know that sounds odd, but that's the best thing that's come out of with the drive is at all levels. So I think teachers and schools listen to me more. I think
who doesn't want our students to do better?
Right. So I think for me, like I have a district that wrote me and said, these are the curriculum we're thinking about doing. What should we do? And I said, oh, let me send this to the people I know who do curriculum. They sent it back. I sent it to them. Here's their answer. Right. So I just try to help facilitate more understanding, more openness, more cross conversation. You don't want to start blaming anybody because this is a national problem. This is not a California
everybody's got to
problem.
be aware of it.
I mean, we could point fingers at folks, but that would be another waste of time. I think what we need to do is get ourselves all working toward the same goal. And I think the positive nature of helping kids read, I mean, if you saw kids getting these books, you'd know right away how great it was. Kids say one of the following three things. They say, this is the best day of my life.
Really?
Yep. They say, because it's like $100 bag of books that they're getting brand new. It's kind of different. They say, maybe you don't want to give me these books because I can't read. Are you sure? So that's the kid that we're really focused on. And they say, I see myself. I've never seen myself. So
there's your cultural relevance.
Right. Those are the three things we hear from the kiddos. And we talk to them directly. We give them the books directly. We have a one-to-one relationship. So I think they're going to grow up and, be literacy warriors.
And remember that, too.
Yeah.
And what I like about that, too, is when they get something like that at school, they're excited they take it home to mom and dad, too, and mom and dad can engage then.
That's right.
Or mom or dad or whatever
or
the situation may be
are.
at home,
That's
right?
That's right. And we provide a parent piece
about it.
in that bag.
Ah, great.
So that parents have a little bit of information about how they can help their kids on each of the pillars of the science of reading that I just listed before. So that we have little tips of things that they can do.
Let's take a break before we hear more from April Javis on children's literacy to let those who make the program possible share their stories.
I'm James Beckwith, President and CEO of Five Star Bank. We're dedicated to supporting nonprofit organizations who advocate for the strength, resilience, and vitality of those they serve. When nonprofit organizations thrive, our community does too. By supporting the Nonprofit Podcast Network, Five Star Bank is amplifying the voices and meaningful impact of our nonprofit community. We're Five Star Bank, a trusted nonprofit partner. How can we help you?
We are really excited to be part of the family and contribute to the work that you all are doing. CORE provides fractional and interim executive services, along with comprehensive back office solutions that go into our client sites and do the work to give them the capacity they need in order to move through transitions, whether that's planned or unplanned. Or companies also work with our accounting and finance, back office solutions, human resources, technology, and administration. The reason why our back office solutions add value is because we save them time and money, anywhere from 20 to 30% of what they would spend on that back office solution. We work in it so they can actually work on it. CXORE.com and contact me directly at DTEAT@CXORE.com.
If you're interested in learning more about how CORE may help your organization, visit CXORE.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission-aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
I'm thrilled to have Western Health Advantage partnering with us as they do so much to support so many nonprofit agencies in our community. As a truly local health plan, you'll find individual and family options, employer options, plans for CalPERS and Medicare Advantage. From medical services to pharmacy, health and wellness support, as well as behavioral health care, Western Health Advantage has a plan that fits what you need. As an employer, for profit or nonprofit business, individual or family, you can find more at westernhealth.com. You have something that I think is, and this is a great segue to this piece of information that you have created on the website, and that is the map.
Oh, the map. I know,
Which
right?
blew me away because
Yeah.
obviously you want to go to the schools that you're familiar with or that your children went
Right.
to, and mine are older now, so
Right.
I'm just referencing back to what it must have been like then. I'm sure it was better then, but maybe not.
No.
And go ahead and explain that to
I'm
us,
going to say
because
no, it wasn't.
it is the most fabulous thing. There's an accountability piece,
Yeah, it's an accountability piece. Is exactly
which I'm
what it
sure a lot
is.
of people aren't thrilled about it either.
Well, we try to keep it easy. The map is a GIS system. It puts every school that takes the CASP.
CASP is what?
That's a test to say, are you proficient at grade level in math and English?
Okay.
And we just have the third grade rates because that's the big indicator.
Yeah.
I mean, until we really we don't need nuanced data until we get to nuance. But right now, more kids can't read than can. So
Right.
let's just stick with the simple stuff. Let's get them reading by third grade, right? That's the idea. So, and the map says it'll show you all the demographics of the site, the Title I level, the ethnicity breakdown, all of those things are there. But the dashboard shows truancy and reading rates and how it's progressed or not over the last year. And that's meant to be a quick look because really attendance is so important. And so we know schools are after attendance. So we think that they'll go to the map because their attendance numbers are there and they're working hard at them.
Mm-hmm.
There is
That's how they're paid.
Yeah. There is, I think, a lot of reluctance to look at the data of how many kids are reading or not sometimes for people. I think there's a tendency to want to talk about the positive things happening inside the data, and that's fair. If I were going to change anything with the data, I would separate out the first-year students from everybody else, because the first-year students who immigrate in are a different kind of child.
And they do influence that?
And they influence the overall score, and I might pull those two things apart just so that we can see the kids who are attritioning versus the kids who are moving, and then we might do more to keep kids from moving, right? Something like that. But otherwise, I think our schools, they're not succeeding and they don't have a path to success, so it's hard to look at the data. So that's what we keep trying to provide, and we go to school boards and we say, hey, look at this. And then, sometimes people, they're not comfortable, but a lot of times they're like, good, I'm glad that we're saying something about the real data because I am tired of failing.
Right.
And There is some, well, it'll be so hard for teachers, but here's what I say to every sixth grade and up teacher. What would it be like if all your kids could read at grade level? What would you be teaching then? Because that's a different story for them. They don't have a classroom of everybody at grade level. They have a classroom of 30 to 40% of their kids at grade level.
Which means the other 50 to 60 or 70%, they're struggling
Are behind.
to bring up to speed,
That's
right?
right. So that's what you're spending your time. Everybody's
Right.
remediating the reading loss. Everybody. And I mean in every classroom, everywhere.
If there's one thing somebody takes out of this conversation, go to the site and look at
Yeah.
those schools of interest.
Yeah.
If you have school-age children especially, and begin to ask the questions. And not to be of a critical nature, but to say,
Right.
what can we do differently? Because that's not acceptable.
Right. How can we come together and fix this?
Right.
Because there's answers. There's,
Yes.
There's real.
There are solutions.
There are solutions. It's a little easier. It could be easier than homelessness and poverty if we just put our heads down. I mean, Mississippi shows it.
Yeah.
3 years of implementation, they moved the needle from 22% to 85%. That's a state. Now, that's a state about 1 million people larger than our county. So I say to Sacramento County, beat Mississippi.
There we go. That's the goal.
Yeah, that's the goal. Beat Mississippi,
Well, and it's so true when you think about what that would take. And it isn't just the burden of the school or the teachers. The parents can make a big, big difference here.
You and me can make a difference.
Yes.
I mean, I'm a parent and a grandparent, but even as just citizens, we can make a difference.
Yes.
All of us can make a difference, and we all are going to have to know something about it. Just like recycling. It took everybody knowing about recycling to start making a difference.
Yeah.
And you know how they taught recycling in California? Through the kids.
Oh, bring
Through
it
the-
home. That's
through the
right.
schools.
Started in the
Took
schools.
it home. Yep.
Yep.
Isn't that
No,
interesting?
mom, dad, don't throw that away.
Right.
That's good for something.
Right. So we're already an advantage because the kids are at the schools.
Yeah.
So
Another great segue into who you collaborate with.
yeah.
Who are the people? Who's in your sphere of influence that is of significance and support?
Well, I think there's a lot of people of significance of support. So, what I wanted, I wrote the list down. So, first we have 3,000 donors
Love it.
who give every year, and we're building on that. So, individual donors are one of our most critical components of our success.
And by
I
donors, that
think.
could be books too, not just monetary, right?
Well, no donors. I'm talking about donors. I'm talking about financial donors.
Okay, financial. Okay.
They're the bedrock that we are building this organization on. So if you
Okay.
give to the Sacramento Literacy Foundation, thank you.
Yes.
So other people. So Twin Rivers, I say significantly because as a whole district, they partner with us, and
Awesome.
we partner with them because they have introduced the science of reading to 300 of their teachers through a year-long training, core training. They are serious about getting their kids reading. Teacher training is the step one. And they
Right.
did it before legislation came. They did it on their own, realizing that they got to get those kids reading. And they're the poorest school district.
Well, what's going to be interesting there is you're going to have a litmus test because you're going to be able to show.
That's right.
Look at what's happening
That's
here.
right.
And if that starts to outperform our other school districts, it's going to be like, oh, whoa.
Twin Rivers did outperform in last year in the increase. Now, it wasn't in my mind, it wasn't a huge increase. It was like a 3.5% increase, but they outperformed everybody else in their increase.
Oh, wow.
So
At 3.5%?
yeah, so right.
Okay.
You got it. I expect in the next couple of years we'll see those numbers change. So then other people who, well-spaced health I mentioned.
Yes, which is great to hear.
Oh, so exciting. And then we have what's called the Sacramento Literacy Coalition, which we bring together. And it's a lot of people from all over who convene on a monthly basis. And then we've done festivals. And then we're also, this is the group who kind of really advocated for the science of reading. And then in terms of, governments, it's the Sacramento County, the city of Sacramento, and the city of Rancho Cordova have
Love
all
to hear that.
bought in to some degree, which is great. We'd like to see Cordova step up a little bit more. They've got a lot of poor kids that they could help. We've partnered with Always Dream, helped them get into Twin Rivers, which is a good program for parents to have books. We've partnered with the Kelly Foundation, and I would just say a nod to them. They, because they're willing to support unrestricted, they're willing to support growth. And I would say that part of what made it possible for us to have a book drive separate and like get serious so that we could bring a well space. And next we're going to put classroom libraries into these same classrooms with 50 book libraries. It really takes. I got a little lost there. Sorry about
You're
that.
okay. You're on it.
Kelly
Foundation.
Foundation. So their grants made it possible for me to expand into that area, and we've asked them for another one, and I know they're supportive in operations. So what a big difference a grantor like that makes. And so I really am grateful to them. We have a lot of donors and people and schools, and we have parents, and we work with also there's this new coalition that's come about. It's called the Sacramento County Education Coalition. They're very focused on African American outcomes. Reading outcomes, though, in Sac City Unified and in Twin Rivers. So we align with them a lot on that and think that's important. Personally, I'm aligning with candidates who know how to hold people accountable.
Political candidates.
Yep, political candidates, because I feel like our district seats are being used a lot to build careers. So I think everybody should look at those races and make sure that the people they're voting for have education experience. I think that's super important. So there's a lot of little things that we can all think about and do, but these are all the kinds of people that we're collaborating with on every level.
And you should permeate the entire community because it's reading.
Right, it's reading.
You must do this. It's like seeing. If you can't see, you can't function to the degree that everybody else could. If you can't read properly, you can't function to the degree that everybody else could. Back to that grade level, whatever that grade level is.
That's right. That's exactly right. You cannot function fully in our society if you are a struggling reader. Reading and not reading is literally attached to every major life outcome. I mean, it starts with high school graduation, but then it's college attainment, then it's career attainment, then it's jail and incarceration rates, then it's health, then it's mental health. I mean, how do you think a kid who struggles to read feels after 10 years of struggling to read?
Right.
How about anxious and depressed? Just as a start. How about a distraction in a classroom? Right.
And then what does that look like, the way they act out?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's right. So then they get in trouble for that. And I heard once somebody say to a parent of a kid who had an IEP and struggled reading that the kid just wasn't motivated.
IEP is?
That's a individualized education plan, I think is what it stands for. And they said, your kid isn't motivated. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, that kid went to class every day. Every single day that kid showed up. So when you say you're not motivated, what are you saying? Right? So we do blame kids for their own struggle. And kids don't have a way to articulate their struggle because they're feeling ashamed. What I've noticed is a kid who can read has no idea who can't read. A kid who can't read knows everybody who can read.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. That's an interesting observation and what a painful one.
Right. And I think how we've missed reading because readers and non-readers don't connect. Non-readers stay away from readers. They feel like they just stay away. So I think that we've missed it because readers would be the people who would look at the problem and read about it and go, oh, we need to do something about it. Right?
And the non can't.
Right.
Can't engage in the conversation.
Right, because we're not, or if they could, we don't have a way for them to because, again, we're in an information age.
And so many times, as a result of that, it gets physical.
Yeah.
Because they're intimidated by it, they're uncomfortable about it.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate.
Right.
But to your point, I think when somewhere in one of our conversations, you said it's the fix for everything. Literally, it can be the fix for everything.
It would trim every one of these causes in a huge way.
Yep.
If we got everybody reading, we'd see a decrease in all these other social issues. Every single one of them. I mean, I really think so. I mean, maybe give me one that
I
you
can't
think,
argue with you. I
mean,
totally agree with you.
I mean, I welcome somebody to give me a social issue that I can't explain how it's attached to reading directly through research.
Right.
It's all been there.
Let's talk a little bit about funding because you mentioned donors as collaborators as well.
Yeah.
How is the organization funded?
So we're funded largely by individual donors.
Okay.
We have
Good for
a whole
you,
direct
which is
mail
great.
process. We have a newsletter that I gave you.
Yes,
I
I've
gave
got
you
it
an
right here,
envelope
and we
too
get
that
this,
you can always just put a little check in that envelope and make a donation yourself, Jeff. So that's one way that we do it. We have endowments, and we're always building endowments. So
Wonderful.
Endowments, we have an operations endowment, and we have a summer reading, children's literacy endowment. We're growing those. Since 2005, we started out with $1 million endowment from a lovely and amazing woman named Nancy Lawrence, who left us $1 million in her estate. What a great start we
Mhm.
got. And so we're giving money to summer reading programming, which is great, but also we're giving money to our operations because that is sustainability there.
Mhm.
And then recently with the book drives, we've really seen people more interested in those. So we're raising money for the book drives and for expanding those book drives. So those are the those come with grants. You know, we're a little bit government grants. We're getting used to it.
Painfully, but yes.
Well, what I do is I ask for money for direct labor costs, and I take care of all the rest so that I don't
Okay.
have to get into the minutia of that reporting. And then we back end the rest of it with our individual donor base.
Okay.
So it's
How many people do you employ?
2.
Okay. I would say I couldn't imagine it'd be a very big staff.
Nope, me and Rigo. It's
Oh,
Rigo
okay.
Tovar and April Javis are the 2 staff members, and then we have an intern, Tamara Robinson, who does some social media, a little bit of social media each week.
And a cadre of volunteers that will step up when you
We
need help, right?
have the most. We call them our dream team.
Yeah.
And we have about 5 folks who come all the time. If we need something and we haven't really seen it, they come, whether that's an administrative thing on my end for the renewals or if it's a book sorting because, you know, we got a grant and they want to get to the school in a week. You
Yeah.
know, we just have this amazing group of volunteers, Anita and Letitia. And we just, I mean, there are our 2 top folks, but then we have a lot of, we have Ricardo, we have Eric. We just have a lot of people.
I love the shout outs. They're going to
who-
love this.
Yeah, well, I hope so because
Yes.
they really do make the difference.
They do.
I mean, they really do. We have Martine who comes. We just have a lot of people who show up a lot for us, and then I have a great board
Yeah.
who get the message. We get along. We all agree that we need to help these kids, and we're kind of all just about it.
I'm going to ask you this next question,
Yeah.
and I know you've got an answer. I'm just going to
Yeah.
be curious to see where the answer goes.
Uh-oh.
This is the big vision.
Okay.
Somebody comes in, like Nancy Lawrence, only bigger, says, April, love what you're doing, blank check.
Yeah.
Give me a good idea. If I like it, you got it.
Yeah.
What would it look like? What would you do if money was no object?
Well, if you gave me a blank check, there's 2 ways I could go with this, but I'm going to talk about the $100 million I did ask. What's the couple that, this is terrible.
Microsoft? Gates Foundation?
No, Meta. What's his
Oh, Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg.
Yes.
So they have a foundation, and I asked them for $100 million. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to put $50 million into an endowment for programming and $50 million into an endowment for operations. And then I wanted to go home and get all the right people there and make literacy happen in Sacramento and in California. Because what you need is you need the sustainability to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
If we had the right group of people doing the job and money was not an issue for them, a lot would get done. So I could tell you what I would do with the money per se, but I think the smarter move would
I like
be,
the bigger vision.
I think the smarter move would be is to create the money and the sustainability and let other people step in who probably have even way better ideas than me and could make it much bigger. I mean, I'd like to get some of the kids who struggle to read in this foundation to start working with these kids because they know. I mean,
Yeah.
if we could get their ideas, if we could hear from them, that would be amazing.
Right. And I'm sure there's so many that have gone through it just to understand what that's like.
Yeah. Yeah, more
So,
than haven't. Right?
Mark, if you're listening, we would really love that $100 million because
There you go.
there's a great idea here.
Yeah.
And it would fix it in the state of California. This is where you're based. And all those people now,
Yeah.
it would raise the ability of your choices
Yeah.
because so many more kids would come up and
Even
engage.
Meta struggles with the entry-level workforce.
Sure.
Everybody's struggling right now with the entry-level workforce.
Yeah. And it's not going to get any better if we don't get this corrected.
That's right. I think that's correct.
Yeah. And it's easier to not correct it because of screen time.
I don't,
I like this. Good.
Screen
Tell
time.
me it's not.
I'm not. Screen time. Sure, I have my own frustrations as a parent with my kids' screen time. So there's that. And my advice to parents is don't buy your kid a device. Let them buy it themselves and let them pay the monthly fee.
Kind of like the car
That's
back in
it.
the day, right?
That's it. Like let them pay for it and let them have that relationship to it, right? As opposed to the entertainment relationship.
Yes.
Make it more. But beside that, Screens can also teach kids to read. They
Yeah.
can also help kids with things that they're struggling with and that they don't have to tell people about. So, screens can also have a positive impact
Yes.
and a negative. I think how we use screens is starting to get talked about a lot. But we put screens in front of kids. As Rigo would tell you, it's our generation to put those screens in front of kids. So we should stop whining about it and think about how we're going to shape it.
Yeah, and not have it be the babysitter, but the teacher.
That's right.
Because it's there.
Yeah.
You just have to seek it out.
Yeah. And we put those screens in front of those kids.
Yeah.
We did that,
So that's a guilty. It's a horrible guilt thing. Because I'm thinking about this. I've got 5-year-old granddaughters. It's like, do not get them phones.
Right.
Do not, as the grandparent to our kids going, don't, as long as you can postpone it.
Yeah, make them buy it themselves.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Greatest need, coming back from the big vision, what is the greatest need today
Great. When you say
for the
that,
organization?
for our organization, well, I think we're doing the right things. So growing would be our greatest need.
Okay.
Getting bigger, getting more people who want to raise money, getting more people who want to give away books. That would be, and getting people who maybe know more about legislation and holding people accountable, right? Just growing the organization so that it can focus on the streams, because those are the streams. They're not changing.
And it's that advocacy part of the organization, too, that is significant.
Mm-hmm.
It's necessary.
Right. We just use our labor for that. We don't fund any legislation. We don't fund campaigns because we can't. But what we do is we use our people, we use our donor base, we use our coalition. We gather people together. So it's kind of grassrootsy, the way that we advocate.
Probably better from the bottom up as opposed to top down anyhow.
Right. Well, I have a theory about that. I think change happens when you have bottom up, top down, inside, outside.
You 100%.
I think you need the whole environment to make change.
Then you truly have change.
That's right.
As opposed to bits and pieces and
Yeah.
factions.
Right.
What does success look like to you?
Everybody at grade level reading.
And that would come from assessment.
A CASP assessment that had our third graders at 85% grade level would be just an amazing thing.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing thing. That would be the first level of success.
And for people who aren't watching, don't see this on YouTube, they're listening to us however they get their podcast. I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
You are beaming when I ask that. I mean, you can just see it. It's a visceral expression of that's what it would look like.
I'm a democracy advocate, Jeff. And what I can tell you is if everybody was reading, we'd start hearing from everybody. And I want to hear from everybody.
Yeah.
I'm tired of hearing from the people we always hear from. I want to hear from the other folks that we don't hear from. I want to know what we're all missing. I want to give them agency. I'd like to see what that's like. I'm not afraid of that.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
So we're going to take a little bit of a deviation here. This is where we
Okay.
go beyond the mission.
All right.
But you have something that I want you to share because this is April.
Right.
And then we're going to get into a few little fun tidbits about it too. But
Okay.
But who is April?
Well, you said who is April, and so I wrote that I graduated from SUEU.
Which is different, by the way, than most people taking the initiative to do it. So I want to hear it because what we discussed, I think, is important for people to hear.
So I wrote down that I'm a graduate of SUEU Elementary School, which used to be Peter Burnett. I was there from kindergarten to the 6th grade. I am a graduate of Cordova High through some various moves and things that happened in my life. And that was in the class of 79, which is a great and well-known legendary class, mostly because of athletics. And I am a revolutionary at heart. And so I think for me, this whole coming back home, I'm from Sacramento, so coming back home, I was looking for a revolution. I've been looking for the revolution since communism fell, right? 1989. And you're like, well, where's the revolution if it's not in this Cold War, right? It's hard to figure out. And it's not going to be violent, because you can't beat the military infrastructure of any of these people. So you can't fight like that. So the fight will be cultural, right? And so I've been looking and through this kind of circuitous route that, started at the library, and that's a top democracy institution. Then bringing me to the Literacy Foundation, I realized, it's reading. That's the revolution. So I'm passionate because I think I'm here. I think this is the revolution. I think everybody reads. Game over.
We win.
We all win.
Yep.
It's just that little thing. So that's what I wrote about.
Okay, so on
Okay.
on the premise that I can't wait to ask this one.
Oh no.
In your leisure,
Yeah.
what's your favorite pastime?
Golf.
Yeah, I expect you to just say reading.
No.
A book.
No, I love of reading is different than reading. I can read and I do an awful lot of reading.
I would
Every so
imagine.
often I read a book, but love reading, I'm 65. My eyes hurt. I'm not going to say I love reading, and because I think that's a setup.
Yeah,
But
it was a setup.
golf is my favorite thing to do, and I'm working on my handicap.
Oh, that's great. Which is what?
No, I'm not saying. Every golfer knows they're terrible. So
Early bird or night owl?
early bird
Okay.
for sure.
Long drive, podcast, music, or silence?
Silence.
Okay. Comfort food.
Popcorn with butter and brewer's yeast.
Oh, I have heard about this brewer's yeast. I haven't tried it yet, but I've heard it's supposedly really delicious.
Nutritional yeast. Yeah, that's my favorite little snack.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice. Try not to let people hide behind you.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie. Boy, I don't know why, but this movie called Algiers comes to mind, and it's so bizarre that would be the
Don't
one
know
that
it. Now
came to
I'm
mind.
going to have to check it out.
It's a black and white film, and it's about revolution.
Oh, perfectly appropriate.
So, but I don't know why that came to mind, though. I don't know if I have a favorite film.
Okay.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to support the mission, we're back to we're away
Right.
from the
Okay.
the lightning round. Yes, this will be an easier question, right? If somebody wants to support the mission, what's the best way to find out more about you and the organization?
Yep. You can call us. You can email us. And you can tap in as a donor, a volunteer, or a literacy advocate, right? We all have potential to read, so we all belong in this literacy community. And I think our job is to give everybody active things they can do based on their interests and capacity. But I want to say everybody belongs because it's a skill everybody either has or needs. And so we want everybody. Call us,
Email us, website.
touch in. Well, we have like 100 people who want to volunteer tutor, but we don't have a tutoring program. So we're going to talk to a school district about doing a training for all of them and putting them in their classrooms. Just low touch, but let's do something with them. Right?
Yes.
That kind of thing. So that's like my army of people who know a little something.
Good. Well,
Yeah,
what we'll do is
that's
we'll put
Rico's
this,
idea.
and we'll put this in the show notes too, so
Yeah.
people know that there's a variety of different ways they can reach
Yeah.
out. Because not everybody's comfortable going to a website. They may not have a computer, but they want to engage, and they can engage.
Yeah.
So that'll be helpful. Do you want to go ahead and give that number?
With
the
the phone
phone
number?
number? Yeah.
Yeah, 916-836-3540. And I'm extension 2. Call me anytime.
Okay. And
Yeah.
the email?
My email is april@sacramentoliteracy.org. Our info email is info@sacramentoliteracy.org.
Okay. And the website is sacramentoliteracy.org.
That's right. Go check it out. You'll see what we're up to. It's nothing different than we've talked about.
Right. And everything will be there in the show notes, so don't feel you have to pull over now if you're driving or whatever. So
I'm going to put this on our website.
perfect.
This will be on our media page.
And I did see that you had several other interviews that you had posted up there as well, which they're just great to see that you're getting out and you're able to tell the story and that people can
Yeah.
listen to it.
Yeah, we've been lucky. We've really been lucky with folks like yourself who have just called us and said, "Hey, let's talk to you." And so we don't have the infrastructure to do a big media
Right.
outreach, to have a marketing team. So it's really nice when things like this happen.
And a compliment, too, because I think it was 2 years ago, Fast Pitch, SVP's Fast Pitch.
Right,
you were-
Messiah Malaris won
you won,
first prize.
and he
Foundation
was
won.
absolutely awesome.
He was
in his
He's
presentation.
He's a lovely young man.
I was a judge that year.
Yeah. You want me to tell you a great story about,
Yes, I do.
about him? So he's becoming a doctor, and he was driving an ambulance as a job to learn, to get into that world. And he was on a call where a woman was bleeding from her right side. She'd been beaten up by her domestic partner, and she had 2 kids. And he was told, get the kids into the ambulance and calm everybody down. And so as he walks over, he recognizes the kid. The kid kind of recognizes him. But importantly, the kid says, "You're the book guy." Messiah had given him a bag of books 8 months earlier. 8 months earlier.
And it's stuck.
Stuck. And he said, "You're the book guy." And then the sister says, "I read those books too." And so for the next hour, they talked about reading, and they read everything inside the ambulance. And that was the focus, not the trauma they were going through. So it just shows you that these books, they might seem simple, but they are a step out.
Look what's given those kids the ability
That's
to
right.
separate.
Right. It's a
And-
hand up.
And how
Right.
serendipitous that those two would connect that way.
Right? No, they do though. It
Yeah.
is literally like that.
Yep.
So I think that's a great story about Messiah.
I do too. And the program.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
depth. Look at it. It transferred not only from the brother,
Yeah.
but to the sister.
the
A little
sister.
peer pressure or
That's
whatever it may have been.
She wanted to show she's
Yeah, right?
smarter.
And she was just as proud to share.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the stories I love. And you see
Eight-
that so many times with kids.
8 months.
Yeah.
You'd think a kid would forget.
Yeah.
Nope. So I think,
With mom bleeding in an ambulance.
right. But nope. So I think this is important. I think there's something about that story that gets right to the value of handing our poorest kids something of value and saying you're worth it.
Mm-hmm. In multiple ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in
The
multiple
tangibility of
ways,
that
yeah.
book. It's something.
That makes me emotional.
Yeah.
That part. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
Well, April, most of us know the way out of generational poverty is the path to success with reading and education. And if you can't read, you can't learn.
You can't
As
get
you've
educated.
demonstrated,
Yes.
it's fourth grade is where it starts.
Yeah.
Your passion is so evident.
Yeah.
And then now knowing that it's a revolution for you, which I love.
For you too.
Yeah.
It's
It
a revolution for
is.
you too, Jeff.
It's
And for you too.
supporting schools, our children,
Yeah.
and getting them to grade level reading with culturally appropriate material. It's just so incredibly apparent. And
Yeah.
the organization speaks for itself by what you're doing.
Thank you.
I applaud you and the team, even though that's a little team doing an awful lot of work.
I feel that
And
way.
your efforts to support and engage our children in our community for the greater good. So thank you for what you guys do, and thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. We hope today's episode inspired you and gave you a deeper look into the work of our local nonprofits. If you believe in our mission to amplify their voices, please take a moment to leave us a positive review and share this episode with a friend. It helps more people discover the incredible work happening in our community. And don't miss future episodes. Subscribe to our weekly updates and monthly newsletter at nonprofpod.com. And if you're part of a nonprofit that would like to be featured, we'd love to hear from you. Just visit the Guests tab on our website. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is recorded and produced at Hear Me Now Studio with generous support from our outstanding partners. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations, online at captrust.com. Western Health Advantage, local care with community impact. Find the plan that fits at westernhealth.com. CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. Visit cxore.com. And 5 Star Bank, a local trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. 5starbank.com.